Hello, YouTube peers. This is Green Ray, and today I am going over a clarification video. Oh my goodness. Should I just. Yeah, okay, new series. Clarifications. So today I wanted to go over the subject of magic. Or is topic the correct word? I'm not sure. Anyway, there are four realities of magic. So magic is supernatural power in all instances. Um, then there's four different uh, realities. So one is fictional magic. Then we have God's Holy Spirit, imitation magic, and real magic. So these are the four different um, realities that I see. And there are four different things for each of us to think about that I wanted to discuss a little bit for each of these. So there are probably other things we could talk about too, but these are the I just came up with four of them for this video. Alright, so to start things off, fictional magic, what is it? It's stuff that world designers describe. So, we're looking at it applies suspension of disbelief. Like, for example, this bird is like a living creature, it's on fire, um, but it's fine. It's not like dying because of that. And that's just how that creature works. It's not something that exists in real life, but we think of it as potentially existing, blah, blah, blah. And then there's this too. So this is actually an example of alternative narrative. So this picture I found from online. I was just looking for science fiction pictures, and this is kind of looks like Cloud City from Star Wars. I could have grabbed a picture of that too. But the point is we don't live in the clouds. We don't have like a city in the clouds, right? Or whatever this is, some sort of like maybe Air Fortress or something. But it kind of looks, yeah, I don't know what it is. But anyway, the point is, it's whatever it is. It's not normal. It's not something that's actually happening with our current technology. So that's an example of an alternative narrative. And there's alternative limitations, and here's an example of that. So you have like these wands like from Harry Potter, and these wizards, witches, they need to use these wands in order to have their magic power. So that's a pretty good example of limitations. They can't really cast spells without that. Anyway, and then we have alternative goals. Um, so in this case, um, in the Naruto world, they have their type of magic is called chakra, and they have different uh, goals. So Naruto, for example, wants to protect people he cares about, and Pain, he wants to basically take away pain from people, I suppose. So yeah, there's not really the same thing as these other magic realities. So this is like because the world designers made up this world, they can make whatever rules they want. And these are just a couple of examples, but there's some of the classics in any case. Like if you destroy everything, then there's definitely won't be any pain because like what the Bible says that when you're dead you don't feel anything. So one of those things you won't be feeling is pain. Anyway, so that's fictional magic. So we'll go ahead and just minimize those. We're pretty much done talking about that. Next up, we'll talk about God's Holy Spirit. So in this case, we have it's helping us survive. So it makes our bodies work in wonderful ways so we can eat food and keep on living. example of that. Um, you can see with the thumbnail, like she's already eaten quite a bit of that food. And then we have family. So here, it's like a mom and a dad and daughter. It looks like just enjoying nature, just getting some relaxation going on there. Um, I didn't necessarily spend a whole lot of time all looking for good examples. Anyway, that's family. Family is like allows you to prosper, sort of, generally. Allows you to get some love and all that. And love is a really important part of the Holy Spirit, of course, and yeah. Anyway, and of course, if you weren't alive, then you wouldn't be able to access any part of the Holy Spirit. So that's why this is like the first thing that we discussed. Anyway, this third thing here is friends. So friends help you to sort of basically work on your goals in general, and like they sort of like uh, bolster like your roots and like help out with your survival too, even. So friends are great. Um, Bible talks about how you want friends that are sticking closer than a brother, so they can be like um, potentially very loyal. But we don't really see that too often nowadays. But that's because a lot of people just aren't in tune with this sort of anti-magic described in the Bible, Holy Spirit. So I want to make this video so people learn about this kind of thing. Anyway, another thing that we want to consider when it comes to the Holy Spirit is true stories. So there was this event that happened recorded in the Bible, for example, and even if we just talk to each other about things that happened in our lives, if we're being truthful about that, then that can be a true story too. And I think that's just like a really important thing that people don't understand. It's just knowing things is really helpful because then it allows us to have uh, more control over situations. Like it allows us to believe uh, what we want to believe and so on, and form our own opinions and all that. So true stories are really important for the development of mental powers and stuff. Anyways, with this event, there was the water. It was a great sea, or humongous river, or whatever, and the waters were broken apart. They weren't allowed to be on the riverbed anymore, basically. So there's like a big old path that all these people could walk through. So and then after they did so, they were the enemy chasing them, and then the waters came back and just drowned them. So that was a miraculous thing that happened, and it's really it was magical, right? So we'll put that something to think about. All these things are magical. They're supernatural powers, I would say. Uh, and being able to benefit from all these things is something that people might take for granted, but they shouldn't. Okay, moving on. So there's imitation magic. So this kind of magic can get pretty controversial. Um, so I think imitation magic is interesting. It has pros and cons. Um, a lot of people might just want to avoid it altogether, and if they do, that's their decision. I don't really. I think it's interesting to observe such things, but I don't know if it's a great idea to get too involved in it personally. But let's go over what some of these things look like. So we have promotional content, we have plagiaristic content, blasphemous content, and even warnings content. So let's just discuss some of the stuff and why some of these things like fall into such categories here. So like for this one, we have an example. This is like a card game called Magic the Gathering. It's extremely popular, and I would say this particular game is a little bit of a combination of imitation magic and fictional magic. I'm not sure. I don't think the world building necessarily envelops everything required to be classified as fictional magic. I think for one thing, I don't think there's alternative limitations being applied. I could be wrong, but I don't know too much about their lore and stuff. But there does not actually seem to be alternative goals. So that's a um, big red flag there. But there's definitely some suspension of disbelief in alternative narrative stuff going on. But at the end of the day, I do consider like Magic the Gathering to basically be promotional. And so by promotional, I basically mean to say that it is promoting real magic. So, because when you consider the different colors, like there's no like good guys and bad guys. It's just kind of like everybody's a bad guy. If you look at all like the actions and the story and the lore and stuff, um, it's always about just screwing over somebody else for your own gain. It's all about selfishness and so on. So, yeah, regardless of whether you're white, blue, black, red, or green type of magic or flavor, I guess I should say, you're still a bad guy at the end of the day, and that's a good imitation, I would say, um, of real magic. Real magic, when you're involved in it, you're basically a bad guy because you're gaining access to the demonic power. But of course, this is not real. That's why it's called imitation magic. So if you do find such gameplay fun, more power to you. But just keep in mind, it is whether it's intended to or not, it does promote the demonic power type of magic. So that's something to think about. And so I would say if somebody doesn't like such a game, you should respect their belief and that they don't want to play it. Anyway, yeah, I certainly don't want to play it anymore nowadays, but I used to play it a little bit. Now, as for this, we have plagiarism. So this is essentially, this is not exactly the original Star Wars, right? So this is pretentious Star Wars, you could say. This is basically they wanted to make their own story kind of deal, but they didn't want to get too creative. So they just like copy and pasted a bunch of stuff. Like this is not the real Han Solo. It's like an imitation of Han Solo. It's not the real Leia um, either. Leia Skywalker, Leia Organa, Leia Solo, whatever you want to call her, and so on and so forth. We go into the next movie. Luke shows up. It's not the real Luke, and so on. This is not a real Force user learning person. Neither is this, of course, or even him, for that matter. Like none of it's real. It's very, very fake. And so I would say but it's not really trying to, what's the word? Um, this, what am I trying to say? It's not really trying to make people understand original Star Wars, even though it's imitating that. It's just kind of like being lazy and just trying to sort of like cash in on the popularity of original Star Wars. And it's kind of like, in other words, they're trying to like cheat the creative process, which is fictional magic, right? The creative, like the original Star Wars, like the Force and all that, was well crafted fictional magic stuff that the world designers were describing and all that, and they were just trying to cheat the system and just try to make some popular entertainment pretty lazily, and that's basically how plagiarism works. I think this is a super good example of that. Anyway, moving on, and then we have blasphemous stuff. So this stuff is sort of like the opposite of promotional. This is trying to how do you want to say, like, we'll get into this other one later. But there was a movie about Noah. So this guy was Noah, and this was I guess you could call him a villain, but the show didn't. I'm not sure if it necessarily painted him as a villain or not, but in any case, he was definitely like the son of like a villain, I guess, theoretically. Anyway, um, the weird thing about this show is it's just so wrong about a lot of things, and there's a lot of shows that are like this, and so it's not. I I want to say they weren't lazy about building the story here, about making the movie. Like they put a lot of effort into it, and so I can't really call it plagiaristic. It's kind of like plagiarism, but it's a little bit different because it's literally looking instead of looking at fictional magic. See, this is the issue here. It's not looking at fictional magic and just trying to like jump on the popularity bandwagon. If anything, God's Holy Spirit is not something that's popular as far as like at the very least true stories is concerned, right? And when it comes to survival, like come on, like I think I think it's fair to say that like the governments and such, they don't necessarily care if we're eating right. You know what I mean? And they'll do what they can to mislead us and make us eat poorly, like give us diabetes or whatever. So there's definitely like a rejection of the number two type of magic, right? In favor of like three and four and so on. But we'll get into that later. So yeah, blasphemous stuff like this is stuff that's just like it's just not true. And Yeah, so if it were like fictional stuff, it would be a different story. Like, but they're literally grabbing from this and just like trying to twist it and like confuse people potentially. I don't know. Anyway, honestly, like I think some people might consider even Star Wars to be sort of like blasphemous, but I personally don't consider it. But like God's Holy Spirit is also called His active force, so in that way, I could sort of see like the resemblance of why people would confuse that. And I just realized I moved this where you guys can't even see it, so I'm like clicking and stuff, and you guys don't see what I'm clicking on. Oops, Control Z. Anyways, what was I talking about? Yeah, my camera's in the way. So we were at this section here. So, so one thing that was really interesting. Oh, I should have gotten a picture of was those like fallen angels or whatever. They were like these sort of like golems, and I mean they're not real, but they're just kind of made up and thrown into the story to make things a little bit more interesting. And also like another thing, like this guy didn't believe in Noah originally, but in this movie he did, sure. So that's another thing that wasn't real too, and we'll talk about that later because, see, this is blasphemous because, real magic causes a suspension of belief, whereas this guy didn't have that, so he wasn't like a real, villain, I guess you could say. Anyway, moving on, and so then uh, there's also content that's like essentially meant to be warnings. So if you look at this, there's like this gal. It's like supposed to be like Sleeping Beauty or whatever. Anyway, in this particular movie, I don't know if you guys have watched it, but we're gonna spoil it for you. It's called The Curse of Sleeping Beauty. I saw it on Amazon for free. So, anyways, there's this guy that essentially falls under a spell, and I can't remember how that worked exactly. But anyway, oh boy. And like he made it, he let it get worse and worse. Like he kept getting more involved in it. And one thing that was really interesting was there was like this really nice gal that like he probably could have just like married and then just like broken the curse by marrying her. That's not this person. It was somebody who was much prettier than this. Anyways, and much nicer, of course. Anyway, so so what ended up happening was by the end of the movie, the guy's just like, uh, he ends up going in too deep, and yeah, like a disaster happens. Let's just leave it at that. I don't want to spoil too much. We'll just do the bare minimum. Disaster happens, and then the narrator or whatever is like, "Hey guys, be careful, you know, like don't mess with demons. Like it's serious business or something like that." What I don't know. I don't remember exactly what how it was worded. But it was basically just trying to say, okay, so throughout the movie, like I think they did a decent job of trying to imitate the demonic power, right? They were imitating it, but they weren't trying to mislead you like a blasphemous kind of thing would do. And but at the same time, they weren't trying to like mislead you either. Like they were trying to so they weren't trying to promote the demonic power either, and they certainly weren't being lazy about the way they designed the story and all that too. So it certainly wasn't plagiaristic. This was They were trying to like make sure that you realize like the reality of the situation. Which I thought that was pretty interesting. And so I think this is potentially worth a while to consider. So like I say, like some people might find, blasphemous or even promotional magic very offensive. Other people might find plagiaristic stuff very offensive. That's definitely very fair. And other people might appreciate some of these things. And this, as for this thing, I think the people that might not appreciate it are the people that actually appreciate this stuff, the fourth type of magic. So let's get into that. Um, so what does the fourth type of magic look like? Let's have a look at some of these pictures. Let's drag some of them over. This one was like a fifth picture that I threw in here. So I thought this picture from Naruto was really fitting. There's actually an example of two things here. So there's a suspension of control and a suspension of belief going on here. So so one of the things that's interesting is drug addiction can lead to a suspension of control. So right here it says lost control and then intake. So yeah, the drugs are not really food. They kind of like alter the way your body works, and it's not really well. It's debatable what's going to happen, but a lot of drugs are not really helpful, and they mess you up. They mess up your head, and they allow demonic forces to take you over. Is basically what happens. Like, and so in this show, even though this was fictional magic, they still did a good job of being imitation magic too, and sort of like I would say the Naruto show fell into the warnings category a little bit here. Um, so that's pretty cool. They were able to be fictional magic and imitation magic at the same time. But anyway, um, so they have Obito was being controlled, like he, and then Madara as well was being controlled. Uchiha, both of them from the Uchiha clan, and it was really sad what happened to them. It was very unfortunate, especially for the guy in the foreground here. But yeah, they both got messed up pretty badly, and it it part of it started with a suspension of belief too. So so what ends up happening here is let's look at this picture right here. There's these representations of these wild beasts and such. There's a dragon. This is supposed to represent the first liar, I suppose, called Satan, the devil. Anyway, and then these are things that are being influenced by him. Anyways, so and then we come to this. So these are just kind of out to ruin people's lives, essentially. And part of that is like we could look at the example of slavery. So if we zoom in on this, this is like from 2017. So this is maybe like 5 years old stats, and this is like official slavery. So this is just one example of infringement on human rights. It's obviously a very deplorable example, but look at this. Even though it's so deplorable, they still managed to get $150 billion each year. That was marked on 2017 and 2018. They earned that much, right? So people that were illegally like selling like people basically, like they earned that much money in total. You know, well, it was 300 billion dollars within 2 years, I should say. But yeah, that's pretty messed up. Um, like think about it. There's that many buyers in the world, people that are willing to buy slaves, and sellers of course too. But it really gives you an interesting perspective. This is a report from just anyway. So moving on. So like, yeah, there's a huge suspension of rights going on, and that's like the worst of the worst, I suppose. There's definitely a lot less toxic stuff going on too. That's still pretty bad. We have to deal with, but we don't really necessarily need to talk about it. But anyway, so just things for you guys to think about. And then there's this to think about too. And I think this is something that's not really true necessarily. I think people think about this because they don't understand something. So I think what they're not realizing is they're not realizing this number two magic can play an influence. So what they're think, I think they sort of realize it, but not they don't fully realize it. So essentially, what's happening here is people get like lots of power. And then, it's really easy for the demons to just, oh, I only need to influence one person because that one person has lots of power. So it doesn't necessarily matter like how much they influence them. They just need to make them lose a little bit of control or like a little bit of belief, in what's right. Make them, just in order to have very large effects. Um, so, so I think what the statement is trying to do is it's trying to encourage people to have more associates, have more viewpoints, in greater numbers. You could sort of like have like friends, family, true stories, survival, like all these things to think about, like community. I think, but I think that's just sort of like a fake reliance. And I think what they really need is they need this God's Holy Spirit thing. They need to like have some sort of like positive spirituality that's going to help shape their decisions. And sometimes they have that, but it's just they usually don't have as much of it as they should. So, and that's why people constantly are getting disappointed by the government. Anyway, so that's, I think we're done basically. And thanks everyone for watching. This was something that I might do more of in the future, but I've been noticing a lot of stuff like just a lot of discussion about magic in general, and I just really wanted to get this video out here because I want to make sure that both, people that, believe in, well, any kinds of these kinds of, well, I should say anybody that observes all these realities of magic, I feel like they might not necessarily understand that there are four of these different realities, and I think everybody should just understand that all of these actually exist. I'm not sure if everybody realizes that or not, and so I just wanted to point that out so that way, I think any kind of magic that you believe in or don't believe in, whatever, you can see it with more clarity. So yeah, I'm going to continue making more like clarity videos, I guess, because I think that's a really interesting idea, which might be helpful to a lot of people.